Look up at the night sky, and you hit the oldest question in human history. What is this universe, and our place in it? That macro puzzle quickly becomes intensely personal. When you look inward, what exactly is the mind asking the question? Who are we, really? It boils down to a specific tension. Is human consciousness a completely separate entity dropped into a vast universe, or are we made of the exact same material as the absolute reality itself? Between the 8th and 13th centuries, a lineage of Indian thinkers built rigorous logical frameworks to solve this specific problem. Their conclusions traveled far beyond the page. These answers provided the ideological foundation for a shift in how an entire society understood human equality and devotion. Out of this era, 3 distinct philosophical systems emerged, each offering a different solution to the ultimate question. To understand them, we have to look at the central puzzle they all tried to solve. On one side, you have the individual human consciousness, the soul, or Atma. On the other side, you have the absolute, universal reality, known as Brahma. The challenge for these philosophers was to map the exact relationship between these two states. This definition determines the real-world structure of a society. If individual souls are seen as distinct and tiered, a rigid social hierarchy remains. But if the boundaries between people are seen as an illusion, that same hierarchy loses its logical anchor. Understanding these 3 specific frameworks is the key to decoding the greatest social and spiritual revolution in Indian history. The first major framework comes from Shankaracharya, born in the village of Kaladi in Kerala. This portrait shows the scholar who mastered the Vedas and Puranas by age 7, eventually propagating a philosophy called Advaita. In Sanskrit, Advaita means non-dualism. Its core logic is simple. The perceived world is an illusion, or Maya. In this system, Brahma is the only absolute truth. Because our souls are one with Brahma, life is not actually separate from the divine reality. Think of this like a single drop of rain falling toward a vast ocean. Once that drop hits the water, it loses its separate identity. It becomes indistinguishable from the ocean itself. To Shankaracharya, realizing this ultimate unity, expressed as Aham Brahmasmi, is the path to liberation. Because the soul has no separate existence, merging with the truth of Brahma is the only way to attain moksha. This strict non-dual model was eventually met with counter-arguments, starting with the work of Ramanujacharya. Born near Chennai, Ramanujacharya studied in Kanchi before moving to Srirangam to lead his own community. His philosophy, Vishishtadvaita, argued that while God is the ultimate controller, the individual soul and the material world are also real. In this model, the soul relies completely on God. Liberation isn't achieved by dissolving into the absolute, but through total devotion and surrender. The analogy is a single green leaf attached to a massive tree. The leaf has a distinct identity, yet is completely dependent on the tree. It exists as a part of the whole, but it is not the whole tree itself. A third model arrived with Madhvacharya, who introduced a radical dualism to the debate. Born near Udupi in Karnataka, Madhvacharya insisted that the world is as real as the divine soul, but the two are permanently separate. His philosophy, Dvaita, emphasizes that Lord Vishnu alone is supreme, and the human soul is his eternal servant. Think of a powerful king and a loyal servant. The servant serves and admires the king, but they are 2 distinct beings. The servant will never become the king, just as the human soul remains separate from the divine soul. These 3 models provided the intellectual operating system for India's spiritual life, creating a foundation that social reformers would soon use to change the physical world. In the 12th century, Basavana moved these ideas from abstract debate into the heart of political and social life in Kalyana. While serving as prime minister, Basavana leveraged his position to challenge the established social order. He condemned superstitions and the hoarding of wealth, focusing instead on the internal growth of individuals. He popularized the concept Kayakave Kailasa, the belief that the human body itself is the abode of Lord Shiva. This was a revolutionary pivot. If the body is the temple, then stone temples and the priestly classes who controlled them are no longer the exclusive gatekeepers to the divine. He introduced Kayaka, the principle that honest work is worship, and dasoha, the practice of sharing wealth to remove the culture of hoarding. To put these ideas into practice, he established the Anubhava Mantapa. This was a spiritual parliament where equality was enforced regardless of gender or caste. Basavana demonstrated that the logic of spiritual equality was only effective if used to dismantle the actual social and economic barriers people face daily. This focus on personal connection ignited the Bhakti movement, a wave that swept across India, translating complex theology into songs of devotion. Ramananda traveled through the north, ignoring rigid caste boundaries to preach devotion to Rama and Sita. His follower Kabir used simple Hindi couplets, which are known as dohas, to bridge the gap between Hindu and Muslim thought. In Bengal, Chaitanya taught that devotion purifies everyone equally, leading his followers in songs to Krishna. In the Punjab, Guru Nanak preached that God is one, condemning idol worship and emphasizing a life of pure action. He turned equality into a physical practice through the langar, a community kitchen where people of every caste sit on the floor sharing a meal. From Mirabai renouncing her royal status to compose bhajans, to Kanakadasa challenging the priestly class through song, and Sufi saints successfully bridging cultures through music, the movement was absolute. This era took enlightenment out of the hands of the elite and placed it directly into the daily lives of common people. These ideas did more than change individual lives. They physically wired the Indian subcontinent together. Shankaracharya traveled on foot from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, establishing 4 major institutions to anchor his philosophy. As the Bhakti movement followed, centers of devotion appeared in regions like Udupi, Pandharpur, Punjab, and Bengal, creating a dense web of shared culture. We map this landscape by comparing 3 foundational models. Advaita sees the soul as God, like a drop in the ocean. Vishishtadvaita sees it as dependent, like a leaf on a tree. Dvaita sees the soul as separate, like a servant to a king. This matrix represents a centuries-long effort to justify human equality through spiritual logic, an effort that reconfigured the social architecture of the subcontinent. Now, step into the shoes of these philosophers and apply these frameworks to your own life. When you look at your place in the universe, which model makes the most sense? Are you the drop merging into the ocean, the leaf relying on the tree, or the servant separate from the king? Let us know your choice in the comments. The search for the why is a journey that every generation has to take for itself.